This is Youth Work, the podcast that delves into the lives of youth workers, their journey and their work with young people.
Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Darryl. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming down. So we're at the Youth Work Conference here in Cardiff City Stadium. Sharon, what's been the reaction like? And, you know, as soon as you walked through the door earlier, what was the sort of sense that you felt and, you know...
Energy, I would say, Darryl. I could feel this real excitement building, and just everybody, for the first time in over 5 years, having an opportunity to come together for this Youth Work Conference. You could feel the electric in the room and conversations amongst people who hadn't maybe seen each other for years. We've had a pandemic, we've had the results of a pandemic and the impact. So I think having the opportunity to meet people face to face again was quite emotional, actually, and dynamic. And straight away, I mean, I knew when we had over 350 people wanting to be here, and then having a reserved list, youth work was thriving in Wales. And it is. And that's how it felt when I entered the room.
What, and I suppose from your perspective and the board's perspective, what do you think is the biggest key takeaway from the whole of today? What's the key thing that you will take away and what you will take back to the board, maybe to implement in the future? Sorry, I probably put you on the spot there.
That's fine, Darryl. I think the whole theme has been around partnership and collaboration, this Youth Work Conference. And we will only thrive as a sector on behalf of young people if we work together.
100%.
So when I say that, I mean the statutory sector, I mean the voluntary sector, I mean ETS, I mean Quibus, I mean Welsh Government, ministers and Cabinet Secretary. We are coming from a different, maybe, sector, but we should all have one vision. And that vision should be to have the best youth work service available with and for young people in Wales. So I think what I'll take away with me is the power of partnership. Because I think fundamentally, when you actually look at the core of what youth work is, it's about relationships.
100, and I agree. You know, being a qualified youth worker and practicing youth work previously and still to this day, it works so much better when there's partnership involved. And often we have partnerships with young people as well. You know, we form relationships with them. And I feel that youth work lends itself to everything that we done today. And I'm extremely proud of. So we got people bringing my stuff in from the store.
Hello, Steve.
Hey, Liz. We're the skivvies. We do the jobs.
Thank you, guys.
It's all on one trolley.
Oh, thank you.
Liz, it was delicious to see you, albeit brief. Steve, always a pleasure. Let's meet for coffee, Liz. This is going to go live on my podcast. Sharon Lovell's inviting Liz Rose for coffee.
Headline news, that is. Oh, brilliant stuff. We haven't had a conference for 5 years. Obviously, today being the first. I'm probably asking you to speculate, and probably unfairly as well. But why haven't we had one for 5 years? And why is it important that we had one now rather than not have one?
I think that's a really good question. I think I would like to see this happen every year. And what we have had is the Youth Work Excellence Awards. And having a conference of this size takes a lot of work. And in my ideal vision, and I know I spoke about it today, the importance of a national body for youth work in Wales. One of those functions, I think, would be around communication, events, marketing,
100.
and what that could look like is for that national body to host these events. So they are in our annual calendar. And it is the role of that board to, with the sector, put on an annual event. I also think we need to have the Youth Work Excellence
100%.
Awards as well, Darryl, because we know they really make a difference to the sector in terms of recognising the contribution through the awards that people are making each and every day in their community.
Yeah.
So I think part of the challenge has been just how much work it actually takes government officials. And I know Quivis has been tasked to run this conference and the Youth Work Excellence Awards that took place last year in Llandudno.
Yeah.
And I know just what a mammoth job that is.
Yeah.
So you need the resources to host these kinds of scale events.
100%.
And in my view, that resource needs to go into a national body going into the future.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that's something that the board is very much concentrated on, the feasibility of having a central or national body for youth work in Wales. And I think we look forward to that. In terms of what have we got to be excited about, as in the sector, young people, what in your view do we have to look forward to? What's out there? And you can think about this next year or the next 5 years. What's there to look forward to, do you think?
Well, I think you've contributed so much, Darryl, and I do want to say thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think one of the things that is vital is that we invest in our youth workers.
100%.
And that's if you're a volunteer, wanting to volunteer maybe one night a week in your local youth club, or if you are the PYO managing youth services in your local authority, or whether you're a small voluntary organisation or a national organisation. I think our workforce are diamond to us if we go into the next 5 years. And we had a vacuum in that area. We weren't investing in qualifications or training or a progression framework that gave you that entry point and then enabled you to go, if you wanted to, onto MA status.
Yes.
So I think the work you've done with the IPG group on the board and ETS has been so important. And that staff development plan needs to go forward into sustaining youth work in Wales. I think the other key area that I would like to see progression on is the legislation reframe for Wales. And we've had over 100 consultation responses. There's been mixed views from that. But one of the areas that is very strong in the reform is partnership.
Yes.
And if we're going to expect 5-year plans from the local authority, we have to invest in that. We have to support local authorities in their duty to provide that youth work provision.
I agree.
And we also have to facilitate the voluntary sector to be part of those plans. And so for the board, it all comes back to a national body where you would have the structure to facilitate and support the work that we've been doing to date and to advance it for the next 5 to 10 years and beyond.
Oh, and number one, thank you for the shout out in your opening address. I really did appreciate it. It meant a lot to me. So, thank you. And thank you for your really kind words just then. I suppose what I want to ask next in relation to a central body is, do you think there is an appetite within the sector for a central body? When you meet with people all around, and I've met with several people today during this podcast and just speaking generally, do you think there has been an appetite? Do you think people are looking for this or wanting it, needing it?
I think in my opening speech, I took it right back to the Youth Work Inquiry in 2016. And I find it really interesting how we now have a Cabinet Secretary for Education with the portfolio of youth work who chaired that inquiry when she was chair of the Young People's Education Committee. And now it rests with her the power to decide with other officials, and I'm sure other ministers and cabinet secretaries, the decision on a national body. The Youth Work Board are advisors, we're not decision makers. but there's been a constant agreement between the board that if you took the board away now and you didn't have a structure that supports the youth sector, there is a real risk of us possibly going back to how bad it looked in 2016. And I don't think there's an appetite for us ever to go back to when 25% of local authority finances were cut. 150 jobs redundant by the local authority because of cuts and closures. 30% of Quivis members fearing they weren't going to be in existence for another 12 months. We don't want to go back there, Darryl.
No.
So I think if it's not a national body, it needs to be something in order to facilitate leadership and governance. I think there will be different views whether or not there needs to be a national body. I suppose my challenge back is, if not, well, what?
So what,
What needs to be in place to advocate for the sector, support the sector, ensure that there's funding, those plans we talked about, the legislation becoming a reality, how young people are going to be deciding what their youth work looks like locally, regionally, nationally. And so I think if we don't have a body, I would question, well, what? Because it leaves us feeling very vulnerable. What I would say is that a body doesn't take away autonomy locally. It doesn't take away the functions that people have, like ETS or WLGA or other bodies in their contribution, STIM being another one now with the inspection framework. They're still vitally important to the sector, but the body would work with those organisations to advance and protect youth work services for the future.
Brilliant answer, Sharon. And you answered my next question, so I'll skip to the further question I have, and it's going to be the last one, if that's okay. But I suppose what we're hearing from throughout the day, and we've had people coming on to this podcast being overly positive, there is genuine fear within the sector, and there are significant challenges that we're all facing. The biggest one, obviously, is going to be funding, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Another one that we've heard today, and I'm very much aware of, is we know that people taking part in training can sometimes mean closures of that provision, unfortunately, for that day or night. So there are significant challenges. How do you see the board being able to help with those, the board and the central body help with those challenges moving forward? And do you think that will sort of ease the pain, do you think? Or do you think that just the challenges will still be there and we just have to sort of work through it as a sector from a collaborative perspective? So that's quite a big, heavy question, and I'm asking you to speculate a little bit there.
I think one of the priorities of the board has been the funding review. And what that has shown us is the difference in expenditure across Wales on youth work. And there's many reasons for that. And what we've tried to do as a board is have longer term funding plans in place. And I think we've already made some changes in that area. We know now with the SVYWO grant, for example, with the voluntary sector, that's a 3-year funding cycle now. We've done similar with the local authorities. So it's important when you're planning cycles that it's not year on year, because how can you plan for sustainability with your workforce or for young people when you haven't got at least 3 years funding cycles? I think I'd be really interested to look at what should we as a country have in place as a minimum spend for youth work in Wales.
I like that.
We know the Cabinet Secretary has rejected one of the recommendations from the funding review, which is to ring-fence the RSG monies. And that was a recommendation within the funding review to be very specific to local authorities and say you must spend this amount on youth work. I can appreciate those challenges because as a local authority, you have lots of priorities.
Of course,
and sometimes they change as well. So I can appreciate how difficult that is. Nevertheless, if we really want youth work in our communities to thrive, we have to be able to support those services in those communities. And that includes money. It includes resources. And so the funding review phase 3, which was to look at a cost benefits analysis to youth work, wasn't achieved because we didn't have the sophistication in the data to support that. Again, I think that work needs to continue. We need to really look at the impact of youth work. We hear today from speakers that working across policy area, youth work makes a difference to youth crime. It makes a difference to mental health and well-being.
100%.
It makes a difference to young people accessing formal education. And we know from the funding review that those policy areas are investing in youth work. And I'd like to see more of that as we go forward. So it isn't just the responsibility of the local authority or the voluntary sector to invest more, but also other policy areas actually invest in youth work. And it's only when we do that together and in partnership, and we have those 5-year partnership plans, and we have some good examples where youth justice work very closely with youth services, play work really well with youth services. And I'd like to see more of that collaboration of resources so we can advance our offer and entitlement to young people. And I think the area you mentioned, Darryl, needs to be looked at in terms of if we want people to be qualified youth workers, even if that's level 3, for example, entry levels as well, then what does that look like for the provision that they're being released from? Because as you say, often they don't have backup staff to be able to cover when people are going on the training. And so I think we've got to be really creative in how we offer our training to people, and we've got to be resourcing those gaps as well.
I agree. Look, Sharon, I could talk to you all day, and number one for me, thank you for all the work you and the board have been doing, and the words you said today at the conference, I think resonated with many people across, and we had such good feedback about everything that the board's been doing, and all the sort of individual IPGs and the subgroups that fall from there. And I think we're in such a, I feel as if it's like a resurgence of youth work. It's really feeling so positive. Now's the time for change, positive change, I feel in. And so please pass on my thanks to the board on my behalf, because they keep me employed, number one, which I absolutely love this job, and I love it. I don't want it to end, but also I can see significant progress throughout the sector, and it's been, from my view, massively well received. So thank you so much, and also thank you for doing the post conference podcast with us as well. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy person.
Thank you, Darryl, for everything you're doing. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr.
This is Youth Work, the podcast that delves into the lives of youth workers, their journey, and their work with young people. Thanks for listening to This is Youth Work. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to receive notifications on future episodes. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to press the like button. Thanks for listening to This is Youth Work. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to receive notifications on future episodes. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to press the like button.